Please rise. Hear ye, hear ye. Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Ryan is now presiding.
You may be seated. Prosecution lawyers, please read your opening statement.
I am here today to support my client, Heather Barkley. My client feels that it is the whole Hood family's fault that her son was killed. She thinks that she could have been there. If she could have been there, things would have been different. She is mainly angry at the hunter for killing her son. He was her only son. The wolf had no brothers or sisters. She was very traumatized right now. She does feel that the woods is not a very safe place. Heather Barkley is making dinner when her son wanted to play outside. Her son, Mr. Wolf, saw the little girl that was lost. He wanted to help her get to Granny's house. Meanwhile, the Granny was throwing rocks at all of the little animals around her house. When the wolf got to Granny's house, he smelled food and wanted some. He went inside and the Granny threw books at him. He got a concussion, but he still smelled food and he started to hallucinate. He saw humans as food. He had been hungry all afternoon and so he ate the food. Granny's husband, the hunter, came inside and murdered Mr. Wolf, and that is why I'm here today.
Defense lawyers, you may read your opening statement.
I'm here today because my client, Little Red Riding Hood, has been accused, along with her grandmother, of helping murder Mr. Wolf. They're trying to unreasonably charge them with charges that they shouldn't even be charged with at all. Grandmother and Little Red Riding Hood were eaten. Mr. Wolf should be charged with fraud, identity theft, battery, child abduction, and attempted murder. This is because he told Little Red Riding Hood to stay back while he ran without her knowing. He also pretended to be Grandma. Mr. Wolf even ate 2 humans and stole a child. I don't believe that we should be on this side of the court case at all. The defendant did nothing and shouldn't be guilty.
The prosecution now calls Rebecca Sinclair to the stand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You may be seated.
Please read your opening statement. Hello, I am Rebecca Sinclair, and I witnessed what happened at the Hood family home. I heard Miss Hood yelling loudly for Red Riding Hood to go to her grandmother's home. She also told the young child to not stop or talk to any strangers along the way. If she wanted her child to be safe, she should not have told her to go into, and I quote, the deep dark woods. I saw the wolf as well. I was in my tree. He was looking very hungry and tired. Red then came running out of the house to the woods. She wore a bright red hood coat and was very easily seen. The mother was yelling something to her as she left, but I didn't hear it since I followed her. She eventually saw the wolf, who was kind and gentle, like most other wolves aren't. Anyway, he offered to walk her to her grandmother's home and protected her, so she said she would love it if he joined her. Then I decided to go back home to my tree since I thought everything would be okay with that girl, and since she had that big, great gentleman, Mr. Wolf, as a bodyguard. But I was wrong. Well, anyways, that was all that I witnessed.
Prosecution, you may begin questioning the witness.
What kind of food did Mr. Wolf think they were?
I believe the wolf thought that they were a steak because they had just eaten steak last night and I could smell it very well from the home. They didn't wash up afterwards either, so it was all over their clothes.
How abusive was Granny?
Granny was very abusive to all the creatures out in the forest. When I'm in my tree home sometimes, she tries to slingshot me with rocks on my own property.
When was the last time Granny visited someone? Or visited Granny?
Well, I haven't seen anybody visit Granny lately in about 2 months. A lot of people don't go into the deep dark woods because it's a very dangerous place to be.
window open that the hunter jumped through?
It was open because, well, Granny's cat, Tabitha Furball, she was about to kick her out of the window. She is a very abusive pet owner.
Why was the hunter walking by at that time?
The hunter was walking by at that time because I had just saw him left to go to the grocery store to get dinner. But on his way to the grocery store, he got lost and decided to go hunting. Well, that didn't go well either, so I came back home earlier than expected.
Defense, you may question the prosecution's witness.
What should Little Red Riding Hood be charged with?
Well, I don't think she should be charged with anything, but her parents should have been way more responsible than just to send her child into the woods alone. I mean, does she even care for Little Red?
How well did you know Mr. Wolf?
I knew him very well. He was a nice young gentleman that lives in the forest right nearby me.
How well did you think, what do you think Mr. Wolf should be charged with?
Actually, I don't think he should be charged with anything because, I mean, he just got murdered and he's kind of dead, so I don't see what you can charge him with.
Has he been acting suspicious lately?
No, actually, he's been acting very nice. Just yesterday, he brought me a nut pie, my favorite.
The prosecution witness may now be seated. The prosecution calls their second witness to the stand.
The prosecution now sends Peter Rabbit to the stand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may be seated.
Hi, I am Peter Rabbit, and I have been called as a witness to testify to the Red Riding Hood and Mr. Wolf court case. I was burying acorns and carrots by my tree that is near to Grandma's house when I heard Mr. Wolf ask in Red Riding Hood's voice to be let into Grandma's house. Lately there had been a crop drought and most of the predator's prey had left the woods. Since many of the animals considered as prey had left, Mr. Wolf was very hungry, and I saw him swallow Grandma and not chew at all. And then the same with Red Riding Hood. I was very frightened. And Red Riding Hood and the grandmother had hit the wolf in the head with some of her books, so he looked a little dizzy. Also, she was holding a cat, which wolves eat, and Red Riding Hood was also holding a basket of food as well. And the wolf was very hungry, but also confused from getting hit with the books. He was not entirely sure what was happening because he was hallucinating that the grandmother caused him. I was looking acorns and carrots for my lunch. When I got back to my tree, I could hear Red's grandma yelling at Mr. Wolf. So I tried to see what was happening. When I got there, I was very frightened by the scene. I have lived by Red's grandma's house for a long time. I rarely go near her because she always yells at animals. But she lives in the woods, so I've always wondered why she dislikes animals so much.
Do you know if they planned the murder of Mr. Wolf?
I think the murder of Mr. Wolf might have been house at the exact time Red and Grandma were eating. Also, there's no way the hunter could have known what was happening unless the murder was planned.
What did you see and hear at the time of the crime?
I heard Red's grandma shouting at Mr. Wolf, then I saw Grandma throwing books at Mr. Wolf, and him unsteadily walk over to her and eat Granny. Red Riding Hood walked up to the house and went inside. After she was convinced that Mr. Wolf was Granny, he swallowed her too. When Mr. Wolf ate them, he didn't chew at all, so they were most likely still alive. Then a hunter who was too far away to see what happened killed and cut open Mr. Wolf. But I wondered how the hunter knew that Mr. Wolf ate them.
And here is the evidence with Granny's fingerprints on it that she threw books at Mr. Wolf.
You may question the prosecution's witness.
Has Mr. Wolf ever been charged with anything previously?
No, he has never committed any crimes that I know of.
How well did you know the Hood family?
I haven't known them very well, except for Grandma, and I've always been frightened to go near her house. She does not like animals.
Have you interacted with the wolf recently? If so, how?
No, I have only seen him before the time that he was killed.
Did you see Mr. Wolf earlier that day?
No, I did not.
The prosecution witness may now be seated, and the prosecution calls their third witness to the stand.
Prosecution now calls Tabitha Furlong to the stand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You may be seated.
Please read your opening statement. I am Tabitha Furball, Granny's cat. I was at the house while the crime was in action. This is what happened. The wolf kindly knocked on Granny's door. Granny didn't even bother to look up from her book to see who it was. She just simply said, "Come in." The wolf walked in and kindly said, "Hello, ma'am. I'm Mr. Wolf. I live next door in a cave. Your granddaughter, Little Red Riding Hood, was lost in the woods, so I guided her here to see you. And I'm really sorry to come without a notice, but your granddaughter wanted to get here soon before your custard got cold." While the wolf was explaining all of this, Granny was trying to read, which was pretty rude, and was furious at the wolf for interrupting her reading, even though he didn't do anything wrong. She was so fierce that she threw 10 of her books at the wolf. The wolf got hit 3 times in the head, 4 times in the stomach, and 3 times on his right shoulder. I wasn't surprised that she did that, though, because Granny treats animals horribly. She slingshots rocks at any forest animals, and she only feeds me 1 bowl of food every 5 days. After getting hit in the head with 3 books, the wolf had a concussion that made him hallucinate. That's why he ate Granny and Little Red. Then Granny's husband, the hunter, showed up, and then without even trying to figure out what happened, he just cut open the wolf. I was horrified. Granny and Little Red were out of the situation without a scratch, while the wolf lay dead.
Prosecution, you may begin questioning the witness.
What kind of food did Mr. Wolf think they were?
I'm pretty sure he hallucinated them as steaks, since they ate steaks last night for dinner. They must have smelled like steaks, too. He hallucinated them as steaks, probably because they didn't even wash up after dinner, and they had big steak stains all over their clothes, and forgot to change last night.
How abusive was Granny?
Granny was very abusive towards any kind of animal. She would kick me outside if I had a meal. And I don't mean metaphorically kick me outside. She literally kicked me. I have bruises and scratches to prove how she has treated me.
When was the last time someone visited Granny?
No one has visited Granny in 2 months. That is why she didn't look to see who's at the door. She didn't bother to do anything since no one but her husband came to see her. She usually just leaves the door open so she can slingshot rocks at animals from her bed. Once I tried to comfort her when she was lonely, but she didn't like that, so she beat me.
Why was the hunter walking by at the time?
The hunter was walking by at the time because he had just went out to get groceries. He got the groceries, but on his way back, the cheap dollar bags ripped, and so he decided to go hunting for dinner instead. He didn't catch anything, of course, because he's horrible. Anyway, he was walking back home really early, so that's why he was there at the time.
And finally, do you think that Granny planned the murder? Because we found this trap lying under her bed, ready to be set.
Explain how that works.
Well, if you step in it, then these enclose and your foot gets caught in the chain.
I think the murder was planned because the hunter came back right at that time and that trap was set right under the bed. And I kind of one time overheard her about trying to murder another neighbor.
Defense, you may now question the prosecution's witness.
So you've stated many times that the wolf had a concussion. How are you sure of this if there were no signs?
Actually, there are many signs of concussion, like glazed over eyes, dizziness, and unsteady walking.
How did you witness him walking if he was already dead?
Well, he got a concussion before he died because Granny hit him with those 3 books. The concussion happened before he ate them, if you're listening closely.
Okay. Why wasn't he with his friends or family when he was outside? He was just alone.
Because he's playing outside in his neighborhood where most kids should feel safe about doing. But that evil grandmother was there and had to ruin all the fun.
So why was he waiting at the edge of the woods and not going any farther?
He wasn't waiting at the edge of the woods. He was actually playing until he met Little Red Riding Hood. That's why he was standing there talking to her, not waiting there.
So you're just assuming that he was hallucinating if you never actually saw it. He never actually told you that he was hallucinating, you're just assuming?
Well, a concussion always comes with a hallucination, and the only possible thing that he could hallucinate was a steak. But I definitely know that he hallucinated because all concussions, you hallucinate.
You may be seated. The prosecution now calls their fourth witness.
The prosecution now calls Heather Barkley to the stand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You may be seated.
Witness, you may read your opening statement.
Bonjour, comment allez-vous? I am Heather Barkley here. I am Heather Barkley. After hearing of this tragic, horrid incident, I decide to take it to court. I will not leave until justice has been given. I live in a fairly nice cave a few blocks west of Granny's house, and I was cooking dinner at the time, preparing for my son's birthday and decorating the house for the planned celebration when I received the news of this tragic incident. And what a horrid thing that my son has been slain by this vicious, mean, cruel creature. Well, we should get on to the case.
Prosecution, you may begin questioning the witness.
How long have you known the Hood family?
I've known them for a few years, actually, though we've never really got along all that well. After a few misunderstandings over bread and other small things that don't really matter in the end.
Do you know if they had a Why was your son out in the woods alone?
I didn't plan for him to even go into the woods. I told him to stay in the yard and around the house.
When was the last time you saw Mr. Wolf before his death?
Well, that morning when I had to get him up so he'd actually wake up instead of sleeping till 12 o'clock.
Why was your family and friends with the Hood family?
Well, they must have run into the Hood family by accident, as we had not associated with them in several days.
Defense, you may question the prosecution's witness.
As she asked you, you told him to stay in the yard, but he still went to the woods anyways. Seemingly, that says that he is an untrustworthy kid.
I wouldn't say untrustworthy. More of adventurous or brave, maybe a little daring, but it's not untrustworthy to like break a rule. Untrustworthy is lying and scheming against someone.
Where were you? Wait, how well did you know the Hood family?
I didn't know them the best, but from the times that we have met, they've been kind of mean and cruel. They didn't really care.
Have you ever had any troubles with your son?
Every now and then he'll get in trouble, but it's not too bad.
Could these troubles have any relationships with the crime?
Not at all.
Has Mr. Wolf ever been charged with anything before?
There's been a small crime of theft over a piece of bread at one point.
You may be seated. The defense now calls their first witness to the stand.
The defense now calls Little Red Riding Hood to the stand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may be seated.
Please read your opening statement. Hi, my name is Little Red Riding Hood. Almost a week ago, I was out in the deep, dark forest. I was out because I was bringing my granny some custard. She's not been feeling well lately. I was just walking when Mr. Wolf began to ask me questions like where I was going and what was in my basket. I told him because he was acting very kind and generous. He showed me some sunflowers and recommended that I should pick some for my granny. I picked the flowers and looked up to find that he was gone. I brushed it off thinking that he had went home. I continued walking, and when I got to Granny's house, she had looked different. She had long, hairy arms, big red eyes, and sharp yellow teeth. She told me they were waiting for me. And I found that it was the wolf. He ate me up so fast. The last thing I could remember was a man standing outside of the window. I woke up in a wet, smelly pit. I heard a large sound. Next thing I knew, that the man that was standing out the window had saved Granny and me. I looked behind me to find the wolf dead on the floor. Defense, you may now question your witness.
How long does it usually take to get to your grandma's house?
It takes about 18 minutes. One time it took 22 minutes because it was raining and I had to walk slow so I didn't slip on the mud. Since I was talking to Mr. Wolf, it took 20 minutes.
How long were you with Mr. Wolf?
I was with him for about 13 minutes. He showed me some sunflowers and asked where my granny lives and how to get there.
When was it when you realized he was gone?
After he showed me the sunflowers and asked where Granny lived.
What did you do when you got to your grandma's house?
I called her name out, then I noticed how strange Granny looked. She had huge big feet, big ears, and very sharp teeth.
So he asked you where your grandma lived.
Yes.
So that shows that he wanted to go there for something.
Prosecution, you may now question the defense's witness.
Why do you think that the killing of the wolf was an appropriate thing to do?
He had to save Granny and me from the wolf.
Why did the hunter kill the wolf if Granny and Little Red could have already been dead?
I'm not exactly sure. I think maybe he just assumed that it was differently. Maybe he thought that we had actually been like chewed up or something.
If you were the hunter, would you have killed the wolf? Why or why not?
I think I would have because if it was worth saving 2 lives over 1.
What was the point of killing the wolf?
To save Granny and I. You may be seated. The defense now calls their second witness to the stand.
The defense now calls Grandma Hood to the stand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. You may be seated.
Please read your opening statement.
Hello, my name is Granny Hood. I'm here to tell why I believe my little grandbaby, Little Red Riding Hood, is innocent. I was sitting in my house, in my bed, doing a little light reading while I was feeling a little under the weather when suddenly a wolf dressed as my sweet grandbaby Red comes knocking on my door. I told him the door was open under the impression he was my sweet grandbaby. That monster comes bounding in. I was livid. Before I even got a word out, he swallowed me whole. It was so dark in his belly, I couldn't even finish my book. The next thing I know, my grandbaby was in his belly with me. We were in there for a while, but then something mortifying yet amazing happened. From inside the beast's belly, I hear voices. I couldn't quite make out what they said, but next thing I know, the wolf howls out in great pain. Then suddenly I saw a little light, and by George, we were saved. I see Henry Hunter, a good friend of mine. After that, everything was pretty much normal until we got called here for the murder, you know.
Defense, you may now question your witness.
What did you do when the wolf entered the house?
I yelled at him. I was furious. Seriously, he dressed up like my grandbaby, for goodness sake. I was in complete distress.
What did you do to defend yourself?
Well, like I said, I yelled at him, but that didn't do nothing much. So I tried to throw a book at him, but before I could, he swallowed me whole.
Did you hear Little Red Riding Hood while you were in his stomach?
I heard her voice. No words. I tried to tell her not to trust him, but I don't suppose she heard me.
Did you witness anything else?
Just the wolf's dying body.
Prosecution, you may now question the defense's witness.
Did Granny set a trap for the wolf? Because again, we found a trap under the bed.
Well, that's just a game. It's a game that I bought from stores. It doesn't work too well, though.
Okay. What did you do after the crime?
After the crime? Well, I ate the custard my grandbaby had brought for me.
What is your opinion about Red's mom sending Little Red through the dangerous woods by herself?
Well, honestly, I really don't think she should have done that. It's very dangerous in those woods.
If you were the mother of Little Red, would you have sent her to the dangerous woods? Why or why not?
I don't think I would have, because like I said, it's very dangerous. But I'm very glad I got to see her.
You may be seated. The defense now calls their third witness to the stand. Or second witness to the stand.
The defense now calls Henry Hunter to the stand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may be seated.
Please read your opening statement.
Hi, my name is Henry Hunter, and I am a hunter. I am here because Susie Blue, the farm girl, told me that she heard some commotion, so I decided to investigate. When I looked in Granny's window, I saw a big bad wolf saying, "I'm going to gobble you up." So then poor Little Riding Hood was gobbled. I was terrified and ran to my truck and grabbed my gun. I quickly ran back to the house, opened the door, and saw the big bad wolf, and he was big. Then I shot him, cut him open, and out jumped Little Red Riding Hood and Granny. Poor old lady had no idea what happened, but she wouldn't stop complaining about not being able to see. I do feel bad for shooting Mr. Wolf, but he did attempt to murder them. I mean, he ate them whole. What do you want me to do? Leave them and never see them again? I had to do something because Granny pays me for the food I hunt for her. If he eats them, I can't get paid. If I don't get paid, I can't buy food and survive. So I had to shoot him to save Granny. And Little Red Riding Hood, that was also a very wrongful thing to do. He ate Grandma, dressed as her, and then ate Little Red Riding Hood whole. That must have been horrible. I don't understand why he ate them. If he is so hungry, he should have eaten the mice. Another reason I shot him is he threatened to eat me, too. So I was too scared and shot him. Just before I shot him, he gave me a big gash on the arm. Vince, you may not question your witness. This is my gash that Mr. Wolf gave me.
Why did you come to the house?
I went over to the house because Susie Blue, the farm girl, told me that she heard some commotion. So I went to make sure everything was fine.
Why did you come to the house?
I went over to the house because Susie Blue, the farm girl, told me that she heard some commotion. So I went over there to make sure everything was fine. I looked in the window just as Little Red Riding Hood was 8. I ran back to my truck and grabbed my gun and ran and shot Mr. Wolf.
What were you doing when Susie Blue told you this?
Before Susie told me what happened, I was going out to hunt because it was about time to get Granny's food for her, and Susie was running like a madman with her arms flailing in every direction. Then I stopped and she was breathing so heavy I could barely understand her, but I did and left.
Did the wolf notice you when you were coming before he gave you that gash?
The wolf did not notice I was coming. First I walked to the window to see if everything was okay, but I saw a Riding Hood there. So I ran to my truck, grabbed my rifle, and ran back into the house. I was scared for my life because he threatened to eat me, so I shot him and he gave me this big scar.
Did you have legal permission to own a rifle?
Yes, I have permission to own it. When I bought it, I went through very long, extensive training for many days, so it's very safe. I also got a CCP and a CCW, so it is 110% legal.
Have you ever met the Wolf family?
Yes, I've met the Wolf family before. I met them one day in the woods. We didn't have any interaction, we just walked past each other and nodded. They seemed really nice, but on the other hand, that was also 4 or 5 years ago, and people change.
Prosecution, you may now question the defense's witness.
What is your excuse for Granny throwing books?
The wolf threatened her life, so I think she wanted to make sure she was okay and scare the wolf away.
If you were the wolf's parents and knowing someone lured your son into their house to be killed, how would you feel?
I wouldn't feel too good, but he was the one that went over there. He could have not gone.
Why do you support Granny's actions?
Because she wanted to protect herself and make sure she and her grandbaby were okay.
What do you think Mr. Wolf did to Granny to make her mad?
I think he came in and threatened her life, so that made her mad and wanted to attack her.
You may be seated. The defense now calls their fourth witness to the stand.
The defense now calls Susie Blue to the stand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may be seated.
Please read your opening statement.
Hi, my name is Susie Blue. I'm Grandma Hood's closest neighbor. I was out picking berries for Grandma's pie when a large wolf came to her door. I heard Grandma Hood tell the wolf to come in, so I guess she knew him. Then I heard a loud scream, followed by more talking. Suddenly, I recognized the wolf. It was Mr. Wolf. I noticed him earlier that morning walking with a girl in a red hood when I went to the market to get eggs and sugar. Then the girl in the red hood came to Grandma Hood's door. It was the same girl I had seen earlier this morning walking with Mr. Wolf. The girl asked to come in, and a loud, unnaturally high-pitched voice allowed her to come in. There was a lot more talking, and then I heard a deep voice yell something about eating people, and then a loud chomp. I panicked, trying to decide exactly what to do when I saw Henry Hunter coming down the road. I ran up the road to meet him and told him about the commotion I heard in the house. Without a second to spare, I watched as he raced down the road to Grandma Hood's house. That was all I saw and all I heard. That's also why I was called here today.
Defense, you may now question your witness.
Where were you when you noticed the crime?
I was out picking blueberries in my garden, making blueberry pie for Grandma Hood, when I saw Mr. Wolf walk into the house with a red-hooded girl close behind him.
What were you thinking as you witnessed the crime?
I was honestly very confused because I didn't see what was happening inside the house. I mostly just heard talking and some yelling.
Have you seen the wolf commit any other crimes?
Not that I know of, but earlier that day I did see him talking to the young girl in the red hood. He was asking her some suspicious questions about who she was and where Grandma Hood lived.
Do you have any relations to the wolf?
No, I've never had any relations to the wolf or the wolf family. I have never talked to him. I only saw him earlier this morning.
Prosecution, you may now question the defense's witness.
Do you know hunter has killed anyone else.
Not that I know of. He's a very good friend of mine.
Why does Granny live in the deep, dark woods if they are so dangerous?
Well, she just likes being near all the forest animals, and she cares greatly for all her cats.
How did the hunter know Mr. Wolf and Little Red are in the... How did the hunter know Mr. Wolf ate Little Red and Granny?
Because I told him when I heard the commotion inside the house.
Why was Granny more concerned about her reading than herself and her granddaughter?
Well, she was mostly confused because, well, the wolf just ate her whole, so it's kind of confusing when you're suddenly in light and then in a dark stomach.
You may be seated. The defense now calls our fifth witness to the stand.
The defense now calls Bob Squirrely to the stand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may be seated.
Please read your opening statement.
Hello, my name is Bob Squirrel. I'm a witness of the Little Red Riding Hood and Wolf incident. I'm here to defend the Hood family. I was hiding from a group of hunters because it was the middle of squirrel season. I was hiding in a small opening in a tree. With my own two eyes, I see Mr. Wolf at the grandmother's door. Then he says, "Oh, grandmother, I'm here with your treats." Then he enters and swallows the grandmother whole. Whole? How is that possible? Then I see him take off the grandmother's clothes and put them on. Then I see Little Red Riding Hood knock on the door. Then the wolf puts on a voice that sounds very familiar to the grandmother. Then she walks into the house and gets eaten. Then I see the hunter go to pay a little visit. And then I see the wolf threatening the hunter's life and that he was gonna eat him too if he doesn't leave. Then out of sheer self-defense, the hunter shoots the wolf just as the wolf gets like a little scratch off him.
Defense, you may now question your witness.
Where were you when this crime happened?
I was up in a tree. I was in that tree hiding from a group of hunters. To add to that, it was in the middle of squirrel season.
Was it obvious that the wolf was going to commit a crime?
I knew as soon as he knocked and put a voice. When he entered the home, I knew something was sketchy. Especially when the grandmother never made a sound or come out.
Did you take action to the crime?
I asked what he was doing and he said he was visiting. I didn't believe it for a second.
What did you see Henry do?
I saw Henry shoot the wolf out of sheer self-defense. I saw that the hunter could hear the screams and knew what happened. The hunter busted down the door and killed the wolf and got the family out.
Have you ever met the wolf? And if so, what do you think about him?
I've never met the wolf, and he looked pretty sketchy. He just looked like he was going to do something bad.
Prosecution, you may now question the defense's witness.
You said that it was squirrel hunting season. Why are you defending the hunter?
Because the hunter, he wasn't specifically hunting for certain squirrels. He was just hunting out to get some meat to give to the grandmother, since he gets paid from that.
Do you know if Granny knew she would be saved by the hunter?
Well, yes, obviously, since that's his source of pay, and they're really close friends, and so that would be the right thing to do, since saving two lives is the right thing to do.
Where was the hunter during this?
He was out hunting, then came back to the house to receive his pay from the meat that he's gotten.
If you were Mr. Wolf's mother, would you support the Hood's actions?
Well, it depends. If I knew my son was a criminal and took place in 2 murders, then I think the right thing to do was just to have him accused and dealt with.
You may now be seated. Court is now adjourned for the jury's decision.